Just in time for a conversation with the Tourism and Wildlife CES, Honorable Najib Balala is joining us on Skype from Mombasa. Thanks for making time for us, sir. So, from your own assessment, how much revenue has been lost in the tourism sector to date?
Well, thank you very much, Trevor, this morning inviting me to this program. The tourism industry has been a major driver of our economy. It's 10% of our GDP, and it generated almost $1.6 billion, which is 160 billion shillings. It also employs about 1.6 million people. So it's a major sector of the economy. Unfortunately, every month we lose an average of almost 13 billion shillings. That is government revenue. Apart from the industry itself, which is at a loss, the investment that has already been put by the private sector. But it's a major factor in today's economy of Kenya.
So from these 1.6 million people who are employed, how many jobs have been lost so far?
Well, we have set particularly with the hotel associations, and now they are coordinating the industry with Ministry of Labour so that they can ease the labour laws, and also to make sure that everybody works under a framework which is legal and which is also a balance between the employer and the employee. The reality of today is it needs an extraordinary way of addressing this issue of loss of jobs, but also loss of revenue and closure of business. So we have held meetings with Ministry of Labour, but I can tell you so far, over 90% of the industry is shut. So that is a major impact to not only jobs, but also businesses and revenues for the economy.
So it's on that same 90% that Damaris is asking Mheshimiwa CS, what is his position on employers who have sent their employees home on unpaid leave?
First of all, every employer must follow the laid down procedures of Ministry of Labour. And there is the Hotel Association that is already working on the framework, and we are coordinating very well. That's the first thing. The second thing, that everybody must sacrifice at this moment. We all sacrifice, and we make sure that we say the most important thing, we need to sustain the job, because business will come back. And we don't want people to just lose jobs or send people on redundancy. No. We want people to take a break in meanwhile and then come back and get back their jobs. This is the most important objective, this issue about sending people on leave without money. But we realize also to send people on leave and they don't have money to feed themselves, that's another dilemma that the industry is looking. But I can tell you there is a committee within the industry and the Ministry of Labour working all the procedures and framework how to address those issues.
But in the meantime, what is the plan to cushion those who've lost their jobs already?
Unfortunately, there is nothing specific for tourism, but as you see, the government has already done the issue of reduction of VAT, reduction of pay as you earn, turnover tax to 1% instead of 3%. So there are measures that are being done generally, but also we have presented the case for the tourism industry to National Treasury and to the government, and we are looking at some of the issues to be considered. So we are yet to be there.
So before all this happened, there was an initiative called Tembaya Kenya. How successful has it been, and what is the plan going forward now?
Well, in 2008, when I just got appointed as Minister for Tourism, I structured the domestic tourism to be key. And we invested money in the domestic marketing. So we invested that money. You can see now majority of the revenues that come from the government is also domestic tourism. Unfortunately, we have not diversified enough because we don't have enough products countrywide, and we don't have the infrastructure to allow people to travel to those areas. The coast has been the biggest beneficiary of domestic tourism, but recently it's because also of SGR, because it's cheap and people can drive to the coast rather than fly to destinations. Masai Mara is also interesting, or the safaris package is interesting, but not as strong because the cost of flying into Masai Mara is still very expensive. So what we are telling the industry post-corona, we need to re-engineer our models, not only to think about international tourism, but also let's think about the domestic tourism and the regional tourism. So we need to re-engineer our products and services to have the taste of the domestic and the regional tourism. We need to make sure that the services and the attitude towards this segment is also provided, as well as this segment is sensitive on pricing. So let's make sure that it is affordable for the domestic and also regional tourism.
So judging from the current trends, the lessons that you've learned, and what is the plan post-COVID-19? Because you've spoken about pricing and changing the service and attitude, re-engineering the models. How do we re-engineer the models?
Well, first of all, you need to give the products for your clientele. So it is clientele-centric.
Yeah.
So you need to know who is your clientele. If my clientele is domestic, it's totally different from the international clientele. It doesn't mean it is substandard service. No, it must be to what their desires are. Because not everybody will want to take 4 or 5 hours drive to do a safari. Not everybody wants to go to the beach. Not everybody just wants to go and do this activity or that activity. But this is the thing that we need to survey. What is our clients? What do our clients want? And this is the engineering of the model of tourism. But yes, I see some of the people who have taken domestic tourism, particularly hotels in Mombasa, have been very successful, and the SGR has helped them. So I wish that we have invested enough railway lines all over the country to reach to Turkana, so people can go to Turkana in an affordable means. At the moment, you have to fly to Turkana; it's very expensive, and then Turkana cannot be developed in terms of tourism because it doesn't have the numbers that is provided to sustain that sector. So all this is catch-22. What do you start with? But the infrastructure is key. That's why I think that Africa will succeed in inter-Africa tourism if we only invest in the infrastructure and then allow this immigration regime to be flexible, particularly to the Africans themselves. I know it is a long-term plan, but if we invest in 5 years' time, we'll be resilient enough to depend on ourselves rather than depend on tourists who are out of the country, sensitive to travel advisories, sensitive to perception of insecurity in the continent of Africa. Those are the challenges we have been having all through this international tourism.
So this time frame that you're looking at, are you looking at a 5-year time frame or 2 years? How soon do you want this revolution to kick in?
Trevor, let's be cognizant that post-corona, it will be a new world order. So we need to reset our industry. Sometimes we think we are doing very well, but in comparison to other destinations, look at Turkey. Turkey has almost 52 million people who visit Turkey. Morocco has 14 million people. South Africa has almost 11 million people visit South Africa. Ours with 2 million, it is still very small. At the same time, we need to remodel the package or the sector so that we can be able not only to have numbers, but also to be sustainable as a sector. For example, with such a crisis, we should have at least 3 months self-cushioning ourselves as the industry. And then the government will come in. At the moment, as you see, everybody almost is on their knees because there was no contingent plan to cushion ourselves as a sector. So the issue, and this came out from the webinar discussion, the industry need to learn how to save for bad times. Because as you are aware that some people in the industry made money, and in the last, I can tell you, in the last 3-4 years, the industry did very well. People made money. So we need to see that money which is saved to come back and be reinvested back to the tourism industry. So to cushion this transition period of crisis.
So currently, as we speak, the government has decided to reopen some of the restaurants amid very stringent measures. Is that a good idea from where you stand?
First of all, there is no way we can shut the economy permanently. But also we have to be cognizant that if we are not careful, if we open it just abruptly, then we will create more crisis. And I agree, I see where you're coming from. But you can see the minister is very careful. He's gradually opening restaurants, not the hotel industry, only restaurants and eateries, and then gives you condition. You need to apply for a permit from your county health office. You need to observe social distancing and also the issue of vaccination, tasting of your staff. And that is crucial. And I can tell you, Trevor, the new traveler who will come, either domestic or international, will have fear of the issues of hygiene to be the focal issue of their interest to go to our entity or to go to a destination. For example, if people know that the epicenter of corona, like now they know it's Italy, yeah, or it's New York, you think people will travel to New York for the time being? No. Until they see that area has taken mitigating measures, which there is no repeat of any infection that is going to go not only to their locals, but also to their visitors. So this is the same thing happening here. So if people see this restaurant A has all the measures, medical measures, and also they've taken measures of health safety, then definitely they'll feel comfortable to go to that entity. Otherwise, they'll remain at home. And maybe sometimes better to remain at home rather than to take a risk. But I think the government is very clear. They need to open the economy gradually, and they're giving these conditions so that we can all fulfill and feel comfortable to go back to our normal lives.
All right. And this really is more of a technical question, but we know now that 67% of Kenyans are asymptomatic. So even testing at the restaurants may not be a very good idea because you might not be showing the symptoms like fever, but you still have the virus anyway as you walk into the restaurant.
I'll tell you something that I've done myself. I've just got tested 3-4 days ago. I am negative. It doesn't mean when you are negative tested, you are guaranteed you cannot get it again. It depends how you behave. So if you behave appropriately, then there is a high possibility that you might not be getting the virus. But if then you are reckless and you are not careful with the measures that has been put forward, then definitely you get affected. So it depends also. And the key issue of the spread is simple things. Cover your nose and mouth, use a mask, wash your hands with soap. Again, distance of 2 meters. Those are principles to make you not be infected by any virus and you don't get the symptoms then.
All right. You've been in the tourism industry for a while now. So what is our competitive advantage and how do we boost it to create some level of the niche tourism of some sort so that we attract more people like the places that you're talking about?
Well, thank you very much, Trevor. I have been this Minister of Tourism for 9 years now. So it's been long, and yes, I'm enjoying my job in this sector because I know the sector very well and I know the colleagues who work in the sector, and it has been growing since I came in. Whenever I come in, it's where it's on its knees, and now it comes back again. But now is the biggest challenge because it's on its knees, and I need to make sure that it gets revived. And definitely we have an advantage as a country because we are nature-based destination. Our flagship is safari and wildlife and nature. And this is what we should use because people who are coming out from the lockdown are going to be desperate to need to breathe and to go to a place where they can connect with nature. And this is going to be our campaign. Come back and connect with nature. And Kenya has that advantage more than anybody else. And if we want authentic safari and wildlife conservation, I think Kenya has been number one in the world in this aspect.
So how can industry players then plug in to have a full recovery of this tourism sector?
Well, I gave some points in my webinar early this week. And the first thing, there must be a mindset change. The mindset must change. One, to appreciate it's not about people coming from Europe or foreigners. It's about anybody who comes into your premises. You must treat them as clients. So the mindset, that's why I said, issue of service, issue of attitude must be. And also, we need to reinvest back to the sector. The issue of technology, we cannot avoid that because without technology, you cannot win this battle anymore. You can see e-commerce. Nowadays, people have takeaways and deliveries and booking.com and also ordering food from the e-commerce platforms. So these are the key issues. But also to make sure that there is a crucial understanding of there'll be a new client. So how do you behave to these new clients? So those surveys are now ongoing. And I think when we flatten the curve, we'll be in a position to say, what is the new norm? And how does the industry plug in? But now we are just evolving and we are getting there. But one thing which I have realized is that we need to change not only in the private sector, but also in government. How do we re-engineer legislation? How do we do governance of our sector? Not only the Ministry of Tourism, but also the private sector. How are they united? How are they coming together? The issue of taxation, that's another thing. How do we give incentive for reinvestment? But also, how do we make sure that this cow that we milk every day, we must also feed it? So these are the new thinking that we must have. But the most important thing, Trevor, is how do we not only revive tourism, but leap forward beyond what it is today. If we think we will open the sector the same way we used to do it, I think we will lose the advantage to other destinations. Other destinations are going to come out very aggressive and very competitive. So we need to be ahead of the game by changing our style, not only in marketing, but in product development as well.
Speaking of feeding the cow, CS, how much are you putting aside for this revival period?
Well, we have allocated 500 million for post-corona campaign. When we are open, then we can sell. At the moment, if we sell, it's a disaster. What we are trying to do currently is to make sure we are still relevant and we are still known that we are the safari destination. But we cannot do the sales now. After the world is opened up, and after this crisis, then we can be able to do the sales. And that is the post-corona strategy that we are now developing. And we want to spend 200 million for PR and communication, and then 300 million for marketing campaigns in our market. Remember also, our market will start opening differently. Some markets that have delayed into addressing the problem will take longer to open. Some markets that have than anticipated. So new things we are watching, and as we evolve, we'll be able to be in a position to say how we are going forward with this program.
So, but this will be post-COVID, which nobody really knows when that will be.
Well, the reality is that international travel will not happen I want to repeat that. International travel will not feel comfortable to do it immediately until there'll be a discovery of the vaccine. Okay. That's another dilemma we have. So it's between 1 to 18 months, 1 month to 18 months. And this is what we are finding as a solution. How do we survive in that 18 months? How do we become proactive and make sure that we don't lose out? And when we open up, we are different than where we were before. So yes, the vaccine is crucial, but remember there'll be the new norm. How do you travel with now the travel health certificate, like the yellow certificate booklet? How do you travel with that, and where do you get it, and how do we facilitate it to happen? Because some countries, maybe they don't have those facilities, or even here in Kenya, we don't have those facilities. So we need to make sure the infrastructure to facilitate the health certificate for travelers is addressed and is put as one of the requirements for future travel by international travelers.
All right.